Hello everyone, it's good to be here again with you. For today, we shall be discussing about the future of tourism. Of course, this is the last topic for the semester. Over the weeks, we've discussed so many things about tourism, especially as it relates to the different stakeholders, starting from the tourists themselves to the suppliers to the service providers as well. So for today, we're going to look at what obtains in the future. What do we expect of the tourism industry in the future? For the learning objectives at the end of this discussion, you should be able to describe the emerging trends that will affect the future tourism marketing decisions. You should also be able to describe how these emerging market segments will affect the future of the tourism industry, and as well describe how tourism service suppliers will be affected by the changing consumer needs. You should also be able to describe how and why the tourism service suppliers are becoming, larger through mergers, consolidation, as well as alliances, and describe how technological changes will affect the future of tourism industry. And lastly, we should have learned or been able to explain why the human touch will remain important to the future success of tourism service suppliers. So all these are the learning objectives, and we hope to touch them one after the other. The shape of coming tourism markets. It says something is coming, that means it's going to happen in the future. All right, so we're going to look into how these emerging trends have actually come about and what we expect to see in the future. Like I mentioned earlier, over the weeks, we've learned so many things about the important segments of the tourism industry. We've learned about the accommodation, we've learned about food and beverages, we've learned about even transportation and so on and so forth. So we've learned all these things, but the question now arises is that are these segments or are all these segments still going to be the same in the future? What we are experiencing now in the tourism industry is just, is the situation still going to be the same? Is it going to remain status quo given all the developments that is happening here and there, the development in technology and so many other sectors of life? So what do we expect of the tourism industry as well? Of course, two macro scenarios will unfold as you can see on the slide. We expect two scenarios. The first one is the fact that a mass market where you have a one-size-fits-all approach, delivering tourism services, meaning that you have an umbrella approach to everybody. You are offering the same thing to everybody, regardless of the different segments, regardless of their demographics or whatever. Or the second one is the need for specialized service offerings for niche segments so as to satisfy the sophisticated travelers from industrialized countries. So I think on this divide, we'll be having, like on this issue, we'll be having two divides, one on the mass production side and the other one on the niche side, trying to satisfy a particular segment. So this two is what what we're going to look at in the future, or what we expect in the future. So for the tourism industry, like any other industry, it's still going to be a kind of a division. We're going to have a kind of division. On the one hand, we'll be having a segment that will be providing mass production for mass markets, like a one size fits all right. And on the other hand, we'll also see some development as in the production of niche areas, in the in trying to satisfy some certain customers or some certain segments of the market. And this is basically going to happen majorly in the industrialized countries. Demographic shifts. Indeed, one of the biggest change that will occur in the tourism industry, especially in the 21st century, is the demographic change. All right, because there will be a kind of increase in the number of senior citizens, especially the baby boomers. The baby boomers are those that are born between 1946 and 1964. So the increase in the number of these people, of course, they would have become senior citizens, they would have been old, and they would need to actually explore, they would need to go on vacations or after retirement, post-retirement, holidays and so on. So because of this, there will be explosion in the number of senior citizens, of course, especially in the industrialized world, virtually in all industrialized world. So there will be increase in the size of mature travelers segments due to the aging of the baby boomers. These people would have become senior citizens, like I mentioned earlier on, and they are commonly found, especially in the industrialized nations. So there is tendency that they will want to move from these industrialized nations, countries and nations, to other parts of the world. There will be shifts in the countries visited as their homeland. For example, there will be shifts away from Europe or Western Europe to continents like Asia, Central and South America, as well as the Eastern Europe. So the demographic shift is actually going to be a major change that is expected in future, especially in the 21st century, as a result of these baby boomers. Here is the population projections by 2050. You can see on the horizontal axis here we have the population in millions, and on the vertical axis here we have the ages as well as the gender. We have male and female here. All right, so this is the population, the different population that we have over the years. You observe that we have 2009 until 2050. So this is a kind of projection into the future of what is going to obtain in the tourism industry across the divide of age as well as gender. Here we also have the US immigration countries origin through the early 21st century, between 1901 and 2010. Travelers with disabilities and special needs, like I mentioned earlier, that a lot of changes are going to happen in the tourism industry. We have started experiencing some of them, and we are still expecting more to happen in the future due to changes in different aspects of life and different things generally. We've talked about technology, that it's actually a great factor in changing the momentum of what obtains in the tourism industry as well as some other industries. So not only the tourism industry. So we also expect that there will be changes, of course, in travelers with disability. There will be changes in what services will be offered to them. There will be changes in how, the increase in the number of these people, as well as they are more incorporated, as they are more welcome in the society, and as they are more accommodated in their society. So the percentage of world population with disability will likely grow, and then 70% of adults with disabilities travel at least once a year according to research. So if 70% of these people travel at least once a year, it means that they also have a say. They also need to be considered in the tourism industry. They also need to be, their needs also need to be taken care of. You need to take cognizance of their needs, as well as being able or try as much as possible to satisfy those needs. Accessible travel will become more and more of an issue because we have various people with different needs, and the most important thing when it comes to traveling or tourism is for the destination to be accessible. So when we want to talk about this travelers with disabilities and different needs or special need, we need to take cognizance of the accessibility of these destinations so that their needs will also be met. So this is also going to be a great challenge, accessible traveling. Some organizations are already stepping up to better serve those with special physical need by providing various services or providing various infrastructures so as to cater for their physical need or their physical disability. So these are some of the things that are expected in the future, unlike a one-size-fits-all kind of service where you don't even consider people with disability or other physical challenges or special needs. We see into the future, we are looking at a situation where these people are where their needs are being taken care of, where their needs are being satisfied, and where they are also being considered in this service production as well as infrastructural production. Infrastructural provision. For example, consider a situation where, as you are providing perhaps some escalators for people who can walk or who can use their legs, we look at a situation where alongside you provide maybe another route or maybe lift or something like that for people with physical disabilities. So those are the kind of things that we look into in the future, or that we expect in the tourism industry. How do we cater for example, those without sight, those without their eyes? So all these are going to be great challenge, but then we look into, we see into the future a situation where these are being taken care of by service providers or the tourism industry generally. Next, we are moving on to the changes in business, professional, and conference travel. Don't forget that we've discussed about the different kinds of tourists and tourism and destinations. So businesses like this category of people, like the name implied, they can travel for business purposes, for professional purposes, and conference or other travel purposes. So there will be conflicting trends, support increase and decrease in the BPNC travel. There will be conflict of interest because you want to serve different sets of tourists or travelers for different purposes, and you need to meet all these purposes. So basically, you'll see, or we want to look at what will happen to this set of people, the BPNC segments. What's going to happen to them? What will be the trend? The current trend actually supports the trend of a kind of perhaps a decrease or an increase or a decrease in the travel. But basically, some technological developments or advances, for example, maybe computer networking and so on and so forth, might also even affect this kind of people, this set of people. For example, maybe when they can afford to meet virtually, then they may not need to travel. You understand now? So best guess is that people will still desire to meet. So even though there is the provision of all these facilities like video conferencing, transmission, virtual conferencing, other meeting networks, all right, or platforms, even though they are still available and will be more, developed in the future, we look into a situation where people will still want to see the personal touch, the people touch. They still want to, see themselves physically and so on. So it is expected, all right, it is expected that as much as the technological development is going to, go to the advanced stage, we still expect that these people will still travel for this business, professional, as well as conference purposes. So the best guess is that people will still desire to meet, and this will increase even though they may have access to many communication advances, like I mentioned earlier, such as video conferencing, virtual conferencing, image transmission, and so on and so forth. The most popular types of conferences in future will not be business related, but they are going to focus on personal lifestyles and interests. You want to talk about your personal life. We've been experiencing some people with vlogs that are talking about their lifestyle or even their personal interests. They tell us everything about their travel, tell us everything about their personal interests. So more of this is going to come up as we move into the future, and this will be kind of events that are going to unfold as well in the tourism industry. People are going to travel just solely for the purpose of letting people know about their travel experience, as well as their lifestyle and their personal interests. We are now moving on to the emerging tourism markets. We've talked about the different sectors of the tourism, but there are new ones that are emerging. All right, there are new upcoming ones, and they started to develop gradually. Some are known to us, some we've heard of them before, and just still going to talk about them actually. The first one is the slow tourism. These are specific, segments that we are looking at that in the future they are going to grow as well, right? So the first is the slow tourism. Like the name implies, unlike the fast tourism, this is characterized by reducing mobility. Okay, mobility is reduced or by taking time to explore people's history, their culture, and even their supporting environment. So it's like you are involving yourself, you are immersing yourself in such environment. The purpose of the tourism is basically to learn about people's heritage, to learn about their culture, to learn about their environment. So how you can do that is to really, immerse yourself in the environment, stay there, and that will be the main purpose of the travel. That will be the main purpose of the travel. For example, there are times people want to just move to the rural community or rural destinations. At times, there are times they just want to move to maybe some certain food tourism venue. They want to know about people's food, about people's culture, about people's religion. So all this fall under the slow kind of tourism. The other one is the adventure and extreme tourism. This is a trip or travel with the purpose of activity participation. You want to participate in many activities in order to explore, in order to have a new experience, in order to involve yourself in something that you know that there is a perceived risk, all right, or a controlled danger that are associated with those personal changes. So it's a kind of, when we say adventure, you want to unfold, you want to unravel things, you want to know what is actually going on. So it's a really kind of activity participation tourism purpose. Then the third one is the medical tourism. For the adventure and extreme tourism, we have the hard and soft forms, which we'll talk about later. Then we'll move on to the medical tourism. That is the third form of tourism. This is a travel to other countries or other destinations for the purpose of receiving treatment. You're going there mainly for the purpose of receiving medical treatment or attention. For example, some people travel for cosmetic surgery purposes. Some people travel for maybe dentistry purposes to fix something in their teeth, something like that, or even for the purpose of experimental drugs. So all this fall under the tourism, the medical tourism. People travel for this purpose a lot. It could be either for the treatment, either if the treatment is unavailable in their country of residence, or perhaps there is a kind of a limited facilities. When there are limited facilities, so people try to move to other parts or other destinations for medical purposes. The next one, which is the fourth, is the vocation and real estate tourism, like the name implies. People go on vacation, they try to take time to explore, to experience possible new careers before they actually try to embark upon or change their career to those specific careers. So they initially want to explore, they travel to know, to have a kind of short experience before they now make up their mind to take up the new challenge. The second one, or the career, okay, the second, which is the real estate tourism, is a situation where people travel or they spend time to have an in-depth knowledge, so as to gain in-depth knowledge and perspective about an area. All right, for example, they may want to maybe have a second home apart from their country of residence. There are times that people want to get maybe permanent residency in some areas or some countries. So what they do at the initial stage is to travel for the purpose of knowing more about the area or the people before they now make up their mind to actually take such destination as their second home. Then we have space tourism. We've been hearing of people going to space, joining the NASA, and so on and so forth. So that's basically a kind of developing market also in the tourism industry. And the last one is the marijuana tourism. The marijuana tourism, this involves possession and consumption of marijuana, all right, and consumption of, traveling for the purpose of possessing and consuming marijuana. This is a very sensitive one, as the possession and consumption of marijuana has various, they have varying degree in different countries, varying degree of legality. So really, people who want to do this would also actually want to go to places that they know that they will be having a safe haven, all right? Otherwise, they might find themselves in trouble if they go to places or countries where this is not allowed. So, for example, there are countries that are known for, that are known as destination, that are known as tourism destination for marijuana purposes. For example, Netherlands, all right. It's a known marijuana destination, tourism destination. Many people travel there purposely to, maybe to consume or to take this marijuana. So these are emerging tourism markets, like I mentioned earlier. Some we've known, some we're just hearing, some we've heard about before, and definitely it's not limited to this. We'll be having more emerging markets in the tourism industry as events unfold, as people, as there are changes in different factors. Of course, there will be change in people's need, and there will be developments, and as well as changes of markets. We'll be having emerging markets coming up too. So imagine tourism markets are not limited to this. We'll be having more, like I mentioned, in the future. So these are examples of adventure travel activities. You'll recall that I mentioned that it's a trip for the purpose of activity participation. So we mentioned that we have the soft as well as the hard travel activities that are involved in the adventure travel activities. So some of this soft include camping, hiking, canoeing, walking, bicycling, snorkeling, and so on and so forth, photo, safari, sailing, dude ranching. So all these fall under the soft one. Then we have the hard one, of course, for people that can dare, people that are daring, so they want to, do skydiving, rock climbing, mountain climbing, or mountain trekking, rapid rafting or kayaking, sea kayaking, ice climbing, scuba diving, and so on. So all these are forms of or examples of hard adventure travel activities. So we are now moving on to the segment of adventure tourists. This is just based on a research that was conducted in 2004. The title is Classification of Adventure Travelers, Behavior, Decision Making in Target Markets, all right, by Song Indy. So basically, the segments of adventure tourists include the general enthusiast, the budget youngsters, the soft moderates, the upper high naturalists, the family vacationers, as well as the active soloists. So these are the basic segments of adventure tourists. For the general enthusiasts, they are about 25%, and they are most likely to take experimental or participatory future trips. All right, they want to explore, they want to experiment something, they want to participate. They prefer hard challenges, like we mentioned earlier. For the budget youngsters, they're about 20%, and they are young, they are single, they have low income, or they earn low income compared to others. They are most likely to take adventure trip with friends instead of the family. Then we have the soft moderates, they are about 10%. They are more likely to be older, right? They are well-educated women. They prefer short adventure activities such as hiking, mature trips, and they are most likely to take package trip. So you can read more about the other segments of the adventure tourists, the upper high naturalists, which constitute about 15%. The family vacationers constitute about 15% of tourists or travelers. As lastly, the active soloists are about 15%. This comprise both the young and the middle-aged men, as well as women who prefer to travel alone with members or with organization. They prefer to travel alone or with members of their organization. Meeting the future tourist need. Since we've been talking about the future of tourists, of tourism or the tourism industry, we should know that the needs of the tourists also need to be taken into consideration. So, like we mentioned in the first slide or so, that there are likely to be two approaches. The first one is where you have a one size fits all kind of service provision that's on a mass or larger note. And the second one is where you have a kind of segmentation. So also meeting the future needs. When we're talking about the meeting the future needs, we should also take into consideration these two divides, all right? Because we'll be using either micro-segmentation and mass customization so as to better meet the needs of these tourists. Micro-segmentation, as the name implies, refers to kind of dividing the market, all right, into different segments and trying to meet the smallest unit of, the needs of the segment, all right, even to the smallest of the needs. The mass customization is where you have, customization for your client or for tourists on a mass level, and this is to also better their needs. So looking at the divide, since we said we'll be having a kind of division along the mass production as well as the segmentation side, so also meeting their needs will go into these two lines of divide, or the two sides of the divide. Mass customization is the extreme of micro-segmentation, so that has been explained. You're going to have two extremes, where one is taking care of or providing services or products that are, for everybody, all right, regardless of their specific or special needs, while the second one takes care of the needs of a micro segment. Tourism businesses in the future would definitely use both so as to be able to survive. Of course, there is no one size fits all the time. Even though you want to provide services or products that will be one size fits all, there should also be consideration of some people or some segments that will need some or that will have special need. Both can add the personal touch of empathy to this tourism service. This is what we actually expect. Cruise line could face unique customer service challenges in the future. And that's another thing that we should take into consideration as well. Transportation transformation. So like I mentioned, that we have different segments, so we want to see the transformation that will happen or that will occur in the transportation sector of the tourism. Air travel changes, of course, will be expected. There may be developments in air travel, air travel service provision, air travel needs of the tourists, as well as other things that are related to air travel. Auto travel will also still be number one. It will still be more efficient as far as human beings are concerned. More ferry traffic will also increase. People expect that, or we expect that the tourism industry will, increase ferry traffic. People will want to travel via ferry. The high-speed train will also become more common than what we have today, even though it's becoming common in different parts of the country, especially the industrialized and the developing countries as well. So it's expected that these high-speed trains will become more common again in the future. Connector trains from city to distant airports will also be more common. So these are the trends, these are the transportation transformation that we expect in future as far as the tourism industry is concerned. Moving into an era of competitive cooperation. Although we have different segments in the tourism industry, but looking at the picture, we are trying to see, or we are trying to, foresee or expect a situation where there will be cooperation among these segments. So we'll see an increasing number of mergers in the future. There's some service providers are going to merge. There will be mergers among them. There will be acquisitions. Some will acquire some others. Some sectors will acquire some other sectors or segments in the market. There will be alliances coming together, and then cooperative agreements among all these service providers. Be it, for example, maybe the food service provider, the food providers, the beverage providers, accommodation providers, and so on and so forth. So in the future, we are looking at a situation where all this will come together, all right? There will be a kind of competitive cooperation among them. They will merge, they will form alliances, they will form cooperatives, they will form acquisitions as well. So all these are going to come up in the future as we expect, or as events unfold in the tourism industry. Food service suppliers will use vertical alliances so as to reduce operating costs. They will try to, use vertical alliances. They will make alliance with other service provider or other food service providers so as to be able to reduce the operating cost and in the eventually in the long run reduce the cost of services or goods that are going to be provided for the tourists. We also look at, or we also see in the future a situation where there is an increase in subcontracting of many guest support functions. So all this is going to a kind of create more jobs, make the work flexible. There will be more flexibility. The burden will also be reduced on the part of the service provider by the time some of these are being subcontracted. It's going to also reduce cost a lot, because by the time we talk about the law of comparative advantage and absolute advantage. So at times it's even better for some, for some companies to subcontract, to allow those that are specialized in that area do the job in a more efficient and less costly way. So all these are being, they are being expected in the future. There will be subcontracting of guest support functions. For example, the food service. You find we are looking at a situation where a hotel will have a separate entity or organization running the food service and production. All right. Even the laundry service, right within the hotel there, the company that will be operating the laundry service will be, will be different, or maybe they would have outsourced that to another company. We also have janitorial, that providing janitorial services as well. So all these are some of the, some of the cooperation or mergers or alliances that we expect in the future in the different sectors of the tourism industry. So this is the Star Alliance table, showing the member airlines as well as the major hub airports. For example, in India, we have Delhi, Kolkata, and Mumbai. These are the cities. In China, we have Beijing and Chengdu. In Brussels Airlines, sorry, these are the airlines, sorry. So Air India operates in these major hub airports. All right, like I mentioned, in cities such as Delhi, Kolkata, and Mumbai. All right, for Air China, they operate in Beijing and Chengdu. Air Canada operating in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. So for Egypt Air, they operate in Cairo. So all these are major hub airports. But in the future, we are looking at a situation where there will be a kind of alliance, where there will be maybe agreements between some airlines and some others, or maybe between the airline and the, for example, train operators, such that once the tourists arrive the major hub airports, then there would have been arrangements for their transportation from the airports to those destinations, especially when they are in other places of the city or the country. So there's the continuation of the Star Alliance. All right, in US and Airways, the major airports include the Charlotte, the Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and so on and so forth. For Turkish Airlines, they operate in Istanbul and Accra. All right, for TAP Portugal, they operate in Lisbon and so on. For Singapore Airlines, you find them in Singapore. So all these are examples of Star Alliance. We are now moving on to service enhancement. When we say we want to enhance something, that means we want to improve it, right? We want to improve it, we want to make it better. So for the tourism service industry, what do we expect in the future? Future service enhancements will revolve around technological advances. That is just the main thing. All right, the future is about technology. Even presently, it's about technology. But in the future, in fact, it's like everything will be almost maybe 100% dependent on technology. So technology is a kind of major factor when we want to talk about some changes or development, future development in any industry, not only the tourism industry. So we expect that the rate of change in these advancements will continue to increase, like I mentioned earlier. events unfold, technologies develop, and it's not going to be stable, it's not going to be stationary. They will still have to develop. So as the technology is developing, of course, there will be more advancement, there will be more development also in any sector, regardless of whether it is industry, the tourism or not. So specifically relating to this course, we are concerned about the tourism industry. So we expect that there will be a continuous increase in the technological advancements. Although the technology will help to enhance the guest experience, for example, we have instances where you just need to operate the machines and you get your service, or you get what you need. You maybe at times there may be no human contact at all. You just perhaps log on to the website, do what you want to do, or take your phone, follow the instructions on a particular app, or you install, you scan QR code and you get something done. So even though that is expected, even at that, we expect that in the future people will still want that human touch. All right, people believe that in the tourism industry, the human touch will and is still the hallmark of hospitality. When you don't interact, even when they know that okay, they can easily interact. For example, we have vending machines that people can just easily interact with and get the items they want easily. But even at that, people will still want to be sure that okay, in case they need any information, or in case they have issues with the machine, they want to be sure that people are on ground to interact with, for them to interact with and help them out of the situation. So regardless of whether these technological advancements are there or not, it is assumed, or it is generally believed, that the human touch will remain the hallmark of hospitality. Amplifying guest experiences. We all know what amplifying means, as to develop something or to accelerate or increase it. Continuing efforts to amplify guest experiences will help, with the help of technology. This is another thing. There will be continued efforts so as to amplify the guest experiences. As much as you want to amplify the guest experiences, don't forget that we mentioned earlier that the human touch is still very, very necessary. They still believe that the human touch cannot be overrated. Check-in hotel room with app on smartphone is an example excuse me, of how people can interact with technology without human intervention. All right, they can just easily, for example, they can easily check in from their app, or their from the app with the help of their smart phone. So there is no need to go to the maybe the reception or the front counter before you can log in into an hotel. For example, another example is where robots run errands for guests. We have instances where robots will go to people in the restaurant and request for their needs, and in the eventually it will bring the things that they actually ordered. Nonetheless, you realize that even when people know that they can easily interact with technology and get their needs satisfied, they will still want that kind of assurance. They will still want somebody to tell them that yeah, you can do this and have the result at the end of the day. So the personal touch cannot be overemphasized, like I mentioned earlier. So people still need to interact with people. But what consumers can become satisfied with is a situation where they will need to deal with technology and they'll still need to deal with the staff at the same time. So this really needs to be taken care of by the service providers. As much as the safety and security of tourists or travelers is very important, it is very unfortunate that it's expected that the threat of terrorism will still continue to increase. So travelers will have to accept a decrease in their privacy, right? You have to accept a decrease in privacy. At times you have to submit themselves for some security check, right? So even there are times that their privacy may be encroached upon, so they will have to deal with that, because it's a form or a step to take their safety first, or their security, because a threat to one is a threat to all, like it's been said. So it's just unfortunate that people will have to cope with that. High-tech surveillance systems will be common everywhere, right? We are looking into a situation where even there will be more developments apart from the CCTV that is common. There will be other high-tech surveillance systems that will be commonly used around destination places. So identification will shift to retina scan. That's another expectation in relation to safety and security. So it's not until you carry your, everything about you, even biometrics may now shift from maybe your thumbprint or whatever, fingerprint to other things like the retina scan. So once that is being scanned, everything about you, all your data will, be revealed. So that is another thing. Identification is also very, very important when it comes to safety and security. There will be a rise of global standard ID cards. There will be more specialty freight companies for toys and baggages. And there will also be a kind of cashless travel society. Even now, we are already experiencing cashless travel, But in the future, it's expected that all this will even have more momentum, and they will have different manifestation apart from what we are seeing presently. So as much as technology is developing, we should look forward to seeing more of this development also in the future. Keeping the human touch. As much as technology is taking over, as much as people can interact with technology and get what they want, it is highly important to know that keeping in touch with with human beings is very, very important, as we are social animals, like they used to say. All right, so let's say we are social human beings. The tourism industry is no doubt adopting technology at an advanced speed. This is a well-known statement. We all know that in every sector of the industry, we are experiencing technological changes. Talk about food and beverage, talk about the accommodation, laundry, you want to move from one place to the other, transportation, so many things, so many aspects, okay? You can book your whatever online, you can do this, you can interact with an application and you get your, things done. So apart from that, in order to reduce labor cost, there will be an intensified focus on automated services, situation where, machines can actually do what human beings are expected to do. So the shrinking number of workers will also lead to better pay and benefits because all the services would have been automated. Then it is expected that there will be a shrinkage in the labor force because less people will be employed, they will be gainfully employed. So it is expected that when there are few people or when the supply of labor is low, then it's going to lead to a rise in the wages. So those that will still remain in the industry will be getting better pays and benefits. The green frontier. We've talked about, sustainability, going green, sustainable environment, and so on and so forth. So, the green frontier is also one of the future expectations in the tourism industry. Recycling will be more important as disposal costs will increase. So, when the cost of disposal increases, then people will want to look more into recycling, reusing, even reducing. So all these are important when it comes to going green. There will be increase in the number of properties and other industry members that are growing and are going green. You want to see people, people offering properties that are, more sustainable. You use lesser electricity. They want to make use of other forms of power, other forms of generating power, for example, the solar or even the hydraulic, power and so on. So there are different forms. You want to see products that are green in nature, that are sustainable, where you don't need much energy to operate. So they will tell you this thing can be operated with so watts, with so power, and so on. So these are some of the sustainable or the green products. So people will be more concerned, or people will tend to have the access to all these green properties as well as services. Moving ahead, we want to discuss about tourism research. Research generally is a systematic investigation into a topic or of a topic. You are trying to investigate something, you are trying to find out something. All right, so in doing that, you need to collect information for a set goal. You have a set goal, you want to gather the information, you analyze the data that you must have collected, and then you find out, or you make your research, you find out or you make your findings from the data that has been collected and analyzed. All right, so research can be the research data can be primary or secondary. Excuse me. The secondary data are those that are readily available. They are readily and routinely available. You can easily access them. At times, you want to look at sources such as maybe the publications of the industry or any other thing. So basically, they are readily available. So for the primary data, it looks into the specific information. You have a specific information or a need that you need to gather that information for the purpose. All right, you have a specific purpose for gathering that information. So the data, so you'll be the one to collect the data. So for the secondary data, they are readily available and they are actually routinely available. So it could be annually, it could be biannually, it could be monthly, it could be weekly. So all this data are referred to as the secondary data. Therefore, applied research, they are used as inputs for making specific decisions. You are applying them. The research are those that are used, the outcome of the research are used as inputs for specific decision. For basic research, they are conducted so as to expand the knowledge on some subjects. All right, you want to expand your knowledge about a particular subject, not to use the information directly or for problem solving. So basically, for the basic research, they are not needed for direct purposes of problem solving. Then the types of tourism research, of course, this is just for any research. I think they are basically the same types. So we are only we are only specifying the tourism aspect of it, since this is the tourism. This course is related to tourism itself. So we have the descriptive research, the experimental research, the predictive research, as well as the simulative or modeling research. So the descriptive research involves collection of information to describe the aspect of the tourism industry or any phenomenon. All right, you collect data for specific purposes of for some specific purposes of phenomenon. For example, you want to know the number of or you want to know different types of tourists that are present in a particular destination or in different destinations. You want to look at them across their gender, how many males are there, how many females are there, all right? Or you want to see how many of them are employed, how many of them are unemployed. So these are examples of descriptive data. You are specifically collecting, descriptive research, you are specifically collecting that data so as to be able to describe some aspects of the tourism industry. For the experimental research, we are really going to, it's not limited to performing experiments in the lab actually, so it involves actually at times involving or doing some kind of activities, all right, that are going to differentiate one group from another group. We are immersing at times, you want to even engage yourself with a particular group or use some things. At times you have the controlled and you have the maybe the open group. All right, you have the excuse me. So you have the placebo and you have the other group. So at times you want to carry out, okay, maybe you want to see that's what is going to be the reaction of tourists if they're being given perhaps some specific incentives compared to others that are not given specific incentives. So you want to see their reaction. So that's a kind of experimental research. Predictive research, as the name implies, is using a particular existing data based on the past to actually predict the future. So you really want to use the existing data to predict what is going to happen in future as it relates to tourism. For the simulative, it helps to make long-term decisions about the future. All right, some tourism organizations use this to model or to simulate. All right, they use the information. So it also uses the existing data, the data that are readily available, and then they're going to kind of model it, right, to simulate it using some softwares, all right, and at the end of the day, they're going to use that to model their or predict what is going to happen in future. Then, who conducts tourism research? Who are those that are expected to conduct tourism research? One is the in-house research. This is the research that is being conducted by those that are specific stakeholders, all right? For example, the tourism suppliers, the government, or even the public or private entities that are involved in the tourism industry. So in-house can be conducted by the service suppliers, the tourism service suppliers themselves, or even the government and the public. Research consultants might be hired. You might hire the service of a research consultant, or at times they might even also be interested. All right, we may have research consultants that are interested in the tourism industry, so they may also want to conduct research. And then we have academic and specialists as well. So these are the three broad categories of people, right, or entities that can carry out the tourism research. We have the in-house researchers, the research consultants, as well as the academic specialists. You should note that these people or this set of people carry out the research for different purposes. The aim of academic specialists in carrying out a research, of course, will definitely be different from the aim of, say, for example, an accommodation provider, a hotel or accommodation provider. All right, so they may have different specific purposes for which this research are being carried out, and this is going to define the way in which the research should be conducted. Who needs the uses of the tourism research? As mentioned earlier, that we have different categories of people that can conduct the research. Then the outcome after it's being produced, who are those that are going to use the findings, all right, the findings from the research. One is the public makers, the public policy makers rather. They want to know how much to invest in infrastructure, for example, all right, if they need this information to do this, all right, to serve this purpose. They need the research to know how much to spend on marketing purpose, for example. They need, to decide whether to make investments or to generate more tourism. So all these are policymakers and the different ways in which they might need the outcome of research for their different activities. They also want to see the size of positive and negative impact. So that is that as far the public policy makers. We also have the government. The government also use the information from the tourism research. Even at times you go to some, or you read about some countries and they will tell you specifically that the tourism sector or industry contributes a certain amount of their GDP annually, And then, this might also enable the government to decide on investment on tourism and so on. Then the tourism supplier firms also, they also need the information for, the data gathered or the results of the research for different purposes. Like I cited an example earlier that you might want to know the description of your tourists along different divide. Maybe you want to know along the gender divide that, okay, this particular tourist attraction is usually visited by males more than the females, for example, all right, or by the old more than the young. Then you want to look into what or why that result obtains. Perhaps if it's an heritage site or whatever, then maybe there may be a possibility that you have maybe older tourists, all right, visiting the destination. That's just an example, and it's not based on real data. So it's just an example. And there's possibility that you have more younger ones visiting. Of course, being an historical site, they might be interested in knowing about their history or their origin and so on. So these are two possibilities, just an example. So tourism supplier firms are also a major group of people that use the tourism research. Lastly, for today, we want to we want to talk about when, where, and how is tourism research conducted. When do we conduct the tourism research? How is it conducted? And where? When, where, and how. Tourism research are conducted continually, so there are no specific, timeline. It might vary across some destinations, it might vary across some countries, it might vary across some regions. So the when is just that it is a continuous process, because as events unfold, things change, and then there is need to conduct research so as to be able to unravel so many things. All right, you want to find answers to so many questions. Countries collect information annually to track the levels of and changes in tourism activities. Like I mentioned earlier, that some countries might have the tourism industry contributing a certain percentage of their GDP. So this information about the gross domestic product is being done annually. So they will tell you between so and so year, this is the GDP, this is the increase in the growth rate of the GDP, and so on and so forth. So countries collect information annually so as to be able to track the level of changes. So the form of data collection could be in different, data collections could be in different form. It could be experiment, which is quite rare. All right, observation is one form where the researcher actually observes. The researcher observes either the tourists or the travelers, right? Or even the site, the destination. You want to be there to see what happens at one time or the other. Then it could be interview. You want to know your tourist needs. You want to know their fears, or even what excites them about the destination, and so on and so forth. So that's another form of collection. Of collecting data. You may want to conduct interview with them. Then lastly, the data can be collected via online or telephone survey. You might want to conduct a survey online by preparing maybe online survey and sharing the link, maybe via the destination platform, the website, or you want to send personally to your tourist emails and so on. So all these are forms of or ways in which online survey can be conducted. It can also be conducted via telephone. All right, data can also be conducted via telephone survey. In that instance, you collect data by putting a call through to your respondents and asking them the series of questions for them to respond. So on this note, we've come to the end of our discussion for today. It has really been nice talking with you all on the future of the tourism industry. So what we expect in the future, of course, everybody, the future is in God's hands. But from what we know today, we've been able to say, okay, given what we have presently, we've been able to look into the future and say, oh, all right, we should expect this kind of divide. We should expect this kind of changes in the different sectors of the economy. We've talked about the different, emerging markets, tourism emerging markets, starting from the maybe the slow tourism to marijuana to adventure and extreme to medical tourism, as well as the vocational real estate. We've also talked about research and how to conduct the research, the types of data that have been collected, and the types of tourism research generally. So basically, these are the major things that are related to the future of tourism. So, and the essence of research, of course, is to be able to make predictions, of course, in the future. So that is why research is a very vital aspect of the, looking into the future of the tourism industry. Thank you so much for your audience. Do not forget to refer to the PowerPoint slides that have been attached. The audio is also very important. Thank you once again. I wish you the best in your forthcoming exam. Please do take care of yourself. Bye.